Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this exciting session of LitFestx, where we are joined by none other than Chetan Bhagat. Chetan obviously needs no introduction to his friends in India and abroad. He's by far the largest selling author in India, with several books to his credit. Right from 5 Point Someone or to One Night at a Call Center, and to his recent book Making India Awesome. Today, of course, we have Chetan discussing with us a very interesting topic: surviving Twitter.
Hi.
Chetan, welcome to LitFestx. Welcome to this session.
Hi, thank you, and thanks for having me. I think it's a great idea that to have a virtual lit fest. It allows people anywhere in the world to come in, and the authors don't really have to dress up and show up, and we can do it from our rooms, and I think it's all very good.
Yeah. Also, from the perspective of your fans and readers, they are getting an opportunity to take a peek inside your living room, as in this case. And I understand you're not in India right now, you're doing this session from abroad.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, this is not my living room. I am in Hong Kong right now, but since I promised to do this session, wherever in the world I am doing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, Chetan, when we spoke about surviving Twitter,
Yeah.
Twitter has had, in many ways, a very interesting connection with global thought leaders, political personalities, celebrities such as yourselves, opinion makers, and what has been your initial sort of starting point with Twitter? How did you start? How did you get hooked onto it?
Actually, I wasn't on Twitter. I am one of the early ones, but somebody had made a fake account of mine. And I remember this was around 2008. And there was this movie coming based on one of my books, Hello. And Gul Panag was in that movie, and she was also on Twitter. So this guy who made a fake account was chatting with her, pretending to be me, and even said, "Hey, let's meet for coffee," and things like that. And I think he fixed to meet for coffee. Obviously, I had no clue. And finally, one day, Gul messaged me on the phone and said, "Hey, what happened? We made a plan to meet up." And I'm saying, "What are you talking about?" And like, "Well, didn't you make a plan through Twitter?" And I was like, "Okay, something's really wrong is going on here." So I apologized to her. I went in there and, I told that guy, and that guy was a fan only. So I didn't really get that upset. He handed me the account and he said, "You know what? I've started this, and I'm just gonna." It was just new. It was like maybe just around 1,000 followers then, and he said, I'm sorry or whatever. You can just have it." And since that day, it's the account itself was not created by me, and then I took it over, and I started doing I tweeting on it. It was much simpler in the good old days of Twitter when I had only a few thousand followers. I could say anything. I could really get away with the most irreverent things. I could say, for example, "Oh my God, I saw this movie. The heroine's looking so cute," or this like that. I could never say things like that anymore because it's going to become news. It's going to become um, uh, whether I'm, being fair to gender rights or something like that. But and soon it grew and grew, and I realized that what I'm trying to do through my writing, Twitter has a very big role in it. I write to bring about some change, to bring about influence society. So while the stories help, but stories take a long time to do. It takes a year or two. Twitter allows me to jump in on issues which are happening now, which are happening today, and it can reach people who have chosen to listen to me. So even a newspaper column takes time. It takes a week to appear, 2 weeks. But Twitter allows a gist of what I'm thinking about an issue. And today it's very much a part of my repertoire of work, if you can call it, whether it's novels, films, social media, and my columns. So all this combines to create whatever Chetan Bhagat is today.
Very interestingly, you mentioned that, as a writer, as an author, one of your roles is to, positively influence society, right? And that Twitter is helping you do that with a sense of immediacy and a sense of currency. Tell me, when you started out, using Twitter, after you got this account, did you ever realize that you would have this massive fan following, and one could very well argue that it is equivalent to the readership of many large newspapers in the country. So there's a certain amount of responsibility that has now come upon you.
Yeah, I never thought it'll rise to the level it is, and it's not just because of me. It's also because of the penetration of internet in India. It's also because so many more Indians are on Twitter, which wasn't the case even a few years ago. I mean, I remember I had reached 1 lakh followers in May 2010, and while my books were quite popular then, and Three Idiots had come and everything, the Twitter following was still at 100,000, which is a good number, but not like that big. Today it is like at 5.8 million, which really becomes a staggering number to influence. It's like if 100,000 people is one very big Eden Garden stadium, we are talking 58 Eden Garden stadiums. It's more than the population of many countries. It's almost as much as the population of Hong Kong, where I am. So it's a very, very big number, and therefore, even if you want, you can't be totally irreverent. You have to draw a line. You can't be boring either. If you want to have a active, fiery kind of account, you can tweet very boring things, but then they will not be very fun, and people will not associate the account with something where stuff comes out that means something. So because I'm not a politician, I can get away with a lot more. A lot of people confuse me. People think I should tweet like a politician. How dare I say that, and how dare I not say that? But luckily, I'm not a politician, so I'm not looking for people's votes. So I can get away with a lot more. But at the same time, yes, I know that if 58 lakh people are going to be receiving this on their phone, do I really, really want to say this? I try to do that because it's on your phone, and the effort involved is the same as typing a WhatsApp message. You often get confused. But I always imagine when I'm tweeting as to speaking in a mic in front of a huge audience, and then automatically the words get regulated or properly.
Wow. So you've had to now consciously sort of self-regulate your tweets.
Yeah, I mean, it is natural. I think we all self-regulate everything every day. If whatever we are thinking, I mean, unless you're with very, very close friends, I don't think we can say whatever we want. At the same time, I think I push the boundaries more than many people with that kind of following. Typically, the culture in India is once you attain a certain level of celebrity, which means that you're a certain level of popularity, you better keep quiet and just stick to your work and do not say things. While on the other hand, we talk about people should have views, people should give out their opinions. We somehow expect celebrities to, just shut up basically. Otherwise, now, unfortunately or fortunately for me, I'm a writer celebrity. So my job is to give out views. So if I stop giving out views because I've become popular today, the reason I became popular is negated. So unfortunately, I have to, talk, and sometimes I get a lot of flack for it. Often, that is why I think we titled the session "Surviving Twitter," because I could give one tweet and I can get thousands and thousands of hate tweets for it. But I still have to give out my view.
True. When you mentioned you're getting sometimes thousands of hate tweets, tell me, over time, how have you learned to manage, this negativity? Clearly, when you started writing and you became an author, one doesn't really, plan for getting, let's say, hate mail or hate tweets or hate posts. How have you learned how to manage this?
Yeah, in fact, I remember when I first wrote 5 Point Someone, I was this new kid on the block, new author. Everybody's writing sweet things about me. By the second book, it was okay. He's writing, and by the third book becoming a hit, and when the movies started coming, then the hate started. As if you've reached a level of success where you have to be hated by a certain section of people, and that continues to this day. And no human being likes being um, diluted with comments which are negative. So it's not like I don't feel bad or anything, but at the same time, because it's so regular now, I'm able to figure out how much of this is coming because these guys don't agree with me, or how much is coming out of a sense of the fact that I'm popular, so therefore I deserve it. Whereas how much of it is a genuine criticism. So I'm able to tell that now. And if sometimes there is genuine criticism, sometimes I'm human. I goof up, I screw up, I have made the wrong view, or I may have been insensitive or whatever, and that I take. But yes, it is something when it comes to writing projects, it sometimes, if you look at Twitter, you feel like, oh my God, there are so many people who don't like me, and there is this a mob that develops, and they're all saying, does anyone like Chetan Bhagat? Does nobody likes him? No. But then when I actually go out there, when I go to, let's say, give a lecture, or go to a LitFest or whatever, and I see thousands of thousand people coming and saying we love your books, and that's when I understand that the people who are hating you get more attention. Anybody who shouts curses at you will get attention, but that's not reality. So just, I guess the answer is keeping a reality perspective. So Twitter is not India, Twitter is not the world, and especially the people who are hating you are, even if you're talking 1,000 tweets of hate compared to 57 lakh followers, it's a irrelevant number, frankly. And the other 56 lakh 999,000 don't really care. If they don't agree with you, they won't, but they're not going to go on a tirade of hate. So actually the hate people are also quite interested in me, I guess, that they're spending their energy and time and putting stuff out there for me.
So one can say that whether they hate you or they love you, they just can't ignore you.
Yeah, that's become a little bit of a cliche, but that is my job. My job is to get attention. My job is to get a reaction, and then that's what I do. I mean, yes, I agree. Getting ignored would be worse. But it would be nice if the hate is less. But then, sometimes I've used. I know how the haters are going to behave, so I deliberately tweet in a certain way so that they react, and it brings attention to a certain cause I'm trying to bring to, or something. So sometimes the haters become part of my marketing strategy. They are like a free sales force I have, and they're a little aggressive and negative. But at the end of the day, they help. They help give me more weightage. They promote me more. They create more curiosity about me. So in some ways, I'm thankful to them.
Right, right. When you mentioned that as a writer, as an author, you have this, sort of duty, towards society. How have you managed? Writing a book is about filling this voluminous amount of words together, and over a long period of time, you probably research a lot, and then you get down to writing, and it's probably a year or two, but certainly far longer than what it takes to tweet on a daily, hourly, morning, evening basis. So these are two very disparate mediums. Even so one could say at one end of the spectrum, there's Chetan Bhagat on Twitter, then you've got your columns, and then you've got your books, then you've got your movie scripts. So how are you able to think and manage, from brevity to a very expanded, elongated sort of form of writing?
Yeah, and I think that is the challenge in today's age. It is a challenge to make people read long prose. So it's anyway a challenge to make people read books. And it's a challenge to distill what you have to say in one line, because you need to be on Twitter as well. And I think that is one of the skills that is required of a writer. And I think it comes from a clarity of thought. If you're very clear in your head on what you're trying to say, you should be able to say it in one line, and you should be able to explain it in a whole book. And I think it's what, if you want to be across all mediums, you need to have that clarity of thought, I think, to be able to do that. I also cut down on tweeting when I'm writing a book. I also don't tweet as much as people think. It's just that some of my tweets have become very noisy and they reverberate a lot more. But if you see the total number of tweets I've made, it's not that much. I mean, it's maybe a couple of them a week. So it's not by the hour, or it's not on a daily, hourly basis. I'm not that active. But Definitely, if I'm writing a column about something, I'll supplement it with some tweets. If I'm writing a book also about an issue, then I will. And on the first part of your question, it's not so much about duty, it's just about the kind of writer I am. So for me, I write to effect some change in society. Another writer might just do it to um, further the field of writing. I mean, maybe to get an award and to be acknowledged as somebody with a beautiful language. Someone might write for children and make children happy. Someone might write to make people laugh. So for me, I write about society, and I write about society in an entertaining manner to reach people. And then I also, if I have a platform to comment on issues, then I do the same. So I don't know if it's a duty for others or I feel like this is the only way, but this is definitely who I am. I will not feel happy if I'm only writing super hit movies, for example. I have to talk about issues, and I'll not feel happy if I'm only talking about issues, because that just becomes too boring for me. So that's me.
Twitter has been used by various people in many different ways. And just a little while ago, I saw you using the poll feature
Yeah.
for the upcoming elections. Give us a little bit about some of the ways you have used Twitter, and like you say, towards talking about social change, or trying to talk about social issues. What are some of the things that you have done?
Well, I mean, the poll feature used to be, for example, in Facebook pages used to have it. They removed it. I don't know why. But that I've always found very useful. I used to do polls on Facebook throughout the previous election. And I actually used to do the poll every fortnight. And it was a tracker. There was an index. So because we know that Facebook is not India, we know that. So there is no denying that even Twitter is not India. So the numbers will not be accurate, but the trend is important. If on Twitter more people were favoring one party 3 weeks ago versus now, then some things happened. And I think I used that on Facebook a lot to track AAP's progress, rise, down, when they did the dharna and everything. And it largely mirrored it very well. Also, the Modi's rise 3-4 years ago, Modi was complete opposite. Today you find a lot of fans of Modi, but there was a time where just writing about Modi, I remember writing a balanced column, not even pure praise, and I got so much hate for it. It's just people just kind of forget how it used to be. But Modi's rise is something I could track and predict much earlier. When the scams happened, Commonwealth Games scam, I used Twitter a lot to um, give out calls of boycotts. One of the most successful Twitter things I did was when, well before up, when IAC used to be there in Anna Hazare's movement, there was this thing I did of Mera Neta Chor Hai. It was from the movie Diwar. On your hand, you write Mera Neta Chor Hai, and you put a picture of it. And that trended for something like 5 days. And people wrote it in different languages. And even today, people remember those Mera Neta Chor Hai slogan. And I know some people even said that's too much. How can you say every Neta is chor? But it added to the pressure on the government to really lead to some changes. And it gave traction to the India Against Corruption movement, and which then became UP and whatever. So I think there have been, and there are many examples. I can't recollect all of them, but in which case, there has been mobilization of followers of sorts. Many times other causes, they tell me, please tell. So I think I try to do that as much as I can, without making it a very activist kind of an account.
Sure. No, I understand what you're saying is that you have to constantly tread this fine path between taking your own role seriously about, like you mentioned, bringing about social issues to the fore, and at the same time not making it, like you said, into a very serious
Yeah.
account. So
That's a
perfectly.
constant challenge for me. Even otherwise, I am not a politician. I am not an activist. And people, especially in India, we like to label. Who is he? If he's an entertainer, if he does Bollywood, then please be the Bollywood guy. Or if you're an activist, please be the activist guy. And they somehow feel that you cannot be both. But for me, both gives me tremendous leverage. Both gives because being an entertainer, I have reach, and therefore my issues are heard by my views are heard by more people. and because I give views, the impact becomes much more. So, for example, a lot of people say, "Why are you doing a Nach Baliya if you are talking about the country? Or how can you be in a dance show?" But for me, that dance show helped me reach people, and I often say, "Do surgeons not dance at their own wedding?" You know, so it's basically you can have a fun side and you can have a serious side. And I think when it comes to serious issues, you take them seriously. But when it comes to doing entertainment, which is my business, I do that in a fun way. So that's always going to be there, and that is what Twitter is for me. It's fun plus some national issues. It is not one of the other. So yeah, sometimes you'll find me tweeting about songs and movies, and sometimes it's going to be about really deep economic issues or something like that.
Right. There's been a lot of recent developments and talk about publishing on mobile, books coming out basis the tweets of certain accounts, etc., etc. What's your view on writing on Twitter or publishing or books, etc.?
Well, I wouldn't mind if someone publishes all my tweets and sells them as a book. Um I think it's all going to converge. I've always been medium agnostic. I always say an author thinks has ideas, and somehow the world likes those ideas. Authors that are popular are authors whose people like the way their mind thinks. I think that's really it. And if that that mental thought process can come out in the form of a book, in the form of a tweet, movie, a talk, a session like what we are having right now, and I think and that's what an author should understand. um, Author being somebody who writes books that are printed on paper and bound in a certain manner is a very limited and restrictive way of looking at things. How can you have a medium dictate your profession? You are in the business of ideas, and those ideas have to be disseminated. So I think it's all going to converge, and I have tried to. I think I've tried to do that. You see me across mediums because um, I don't I don't bound myself. I feel like I have to adapt to every medium.
Right. And there's been a lot of negative and positive sort of views on is the increasing use of platforms like Twitter, which are forcing people to sort of be very brief, talk in very short bursts. Is that changing the way people are communicating by and large? The linguistics of it, the use of words, etc. What have you seen a lot of that take place? In terms of the interaction that has been happening with you through your followers.
I think so. I think we if you use Twitter as one of the sources, and then you also read long prose or discuss have then because Twitter is slogans, and you can't live and form your worldview on slogans. So it's nice to guide you. It's nice to know what other people think. But if that's all the effort you're going to make to read or to understand things, then you are going to be a shallow person. You're not going to have a very good grip on things. And I often find that. I often find, for example, people who are hating me for my opinions, I normally don't respond. But in a few cases where they've written to me in a polite way, I sometimes may respond and say, okay, why do you hate me? Why do you say that I'm stupid or a moron um, or cunning or whatever else there? And he said, because you've written this, I don't agree. And I'm like, have you read the whole article? Have you understood what I'm trying to say? And then I go a little level deeper, and they're like, actually, yeah, it's not so bad. And then suddenly their hatred outburst seems uh, like a total overreaction. And that's because they've not gone to deep think. It's as simple as you like Modi, you hate Modi. You like Kejriwal, you don't like Kejriwal. You hate him, right? I hate you. Or like something like that will happen, which is obviously does nothing to the debate. Then you're like an educated illiterate in a way. We often say illiterate people don't know how to give votes, or they are the reason for many problems. But if you're going to be educated and not like really properly understand things and just react to tweets, then you're no different from a mob. And so I think people should keep reading. People should read full articles. People should understand things and then take Twitter in context. Otherwise, you are just like, reading slogans and trying to form a worldview.
True. No, that's very true. And certainly for the current users, which the current youth who are very active on Twitter, uh, you know, sometimes for hours at a stretch, or for a long time in a given day, one can assume that this is how the baseline communication needs to take place.
Yeah, and that's a mistake. And if you're on Twitter all day, there is something wrong with it. I mean, it's like watching TV all day, or it's like, you obviously that is something wrong. I hope it's so obvious that I can't believe I'm like actually saying it. So Twitter is great, but that doesn't mean you need to be on it all day. There is a world out there, and you need to be out there and understand things and see things and live your life. It's just non-stop content. You can't be tuned to it all the time.
Sure, sure. So, Chetan, we'll probably take in a question or two from the online audience. Some of them have been tweeting. I'll just pick out one or two questions. So, this one is from Karan, and he says, "Has the Indian readership's view on books changed lately?" And then the follow-on question is, "Do you see the next league of writers to come from Twitter?"
Well, definitely, Indian readers are more open now. It's firstly, you have a lot more Indian readers. This time I started writing, English writing used to be this elite club. You had to, be a certain level of English, and you had to read a certain level of English writing. It's like a really narrow, tiny segment called Indian literature. And some people still believe that is Indian literature, and everything else is not literature, even though they have studied in school that or in college that literature is something that represents society. They somehow refuse to get out of that elitist Brahmin mode. But today's Indian reader, if you talk pan India, is much broader base. It can be even broader, but it's much broader. Yes, the next set of writers could come from Twitter. I mean, they could come from internet. You have had people come from YouTube into mainstream, for example, many singers and artists. So you could have a case where, but it will usually be someone who tweets as well as blogs, or some journalist or something. Yes, so it will happen. That's a way to kind of get noticed and then take it from there and something. Yes.
Right. You mentioned something really interesting right now, in terms of the sort of elitism surrounding authors and writers in India, till a few years ago. Uh, One could argue that the phenomenon of, let's say, events or lectures or literature festivals inherently started to promote the habit of reading, to promote interaction between authors and readers and prospective readers, to promote debate and discussion.
Yeah.
But now, do you find that that itself has become an elitist pursuit? I mean, so for example, in a country like India, with a population of 120 crores and still growing fast, uh, the great literary festivals physically will probably be able to house 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15,000 people, barring one or two which are really much larger.
Yeah.
And it'll happen in an urban environment, which will give access to probably zero point 0.1 or 0.2% of even that urban center. So that city's population, maybe 0.1%, will
Yeah.
ever be able to be there. So aren't we now, after so many years of physical festivals, started to propagate elitism around it?
It is, we love in India, we love to make a caste system around everything. We just love, and especially literature is notorious for this. There is always this sense of, I'm superior to you, and, who are you? You don't read, and that, and, that especially we are very, very cruel to the new reader in this country. And you see that happening on Twitter all the time. I think you just have to blow through it. You just have to realize that this kind of affectedness and this kind of phony behavior is not going to get you anywhere. Platforms like this should rise. you can, these days, most lit fests are trying to live stream. Um, Yours is completely live stream. So I think that will help to a certain extent. I try my best to go to as many small towns as possible and support. For example, in 3 days, I'm going to a place called Kurud in Chhattisgarh, which is really like a small town outside Raipur, 1 hour away. It's like almost like a C center, D center. For a huge address to the students. I'm going to something. Indore is starting a literary festival, so I'm going for that. So yes, you have to understand that unless you take India along, it's not really Indian literature, and that's what something I keep saying. But the more I say it, I get told that I'm too massy and I'm not classy enough and everything. But you just have to keep saying it because you have to say the right thing. It's a bit like you have India Fashion Week, right? And we say it's India Fashion Week, but it's really South Mumbai and South Delhi Fashion Week because only people living in these localities wear those clothes. So how is it India Fashion Week? So it's the same. That same tendency can be there in literature as well. So we just have to just ignore the elitist fluff and keep on doing what we are doing.
Sure. And I really like what you're saying that we have to go out and connect. So in terms of the effort you're making to go to far out places and connect with people, uh, it's about democratizing access to yourself, to your content, to your thinking, to your thought leadership. So why is it that somebody who can't be even in a tier 3 town, which is not having a address, which is not having a lecture being organized, which is not getting a literature festival there, why can't a school or college kid simply log on and say, hey, I want to hear Chetan's views on Twitter, or maybe next month it could be Chetan's views on something else, and that interaction, that feed might just change a lot of things for that one kid, for that one classroom, for that one school, and get them excited about reading, get them excited about reading columns or op-eds, etc.
Well, it can all happen, and it will happen if people who care about literature and people who have power over literature really make that a priority, and rather than saying that we are better than somebody else and we are more cool or we are more elitist and we understand and who are these people. I remember a couple of people just called me Bazaru recently, I think some Sahitya Academy writers, because I questioned why they're giving back their awards. Why don't they write columns instead about what they're feeling? But the response was a personal attack. And Bazaru, I guess, means that because my work sells, and I don't know, implying that I'm some kind of a prostitute or something. So I think that kind of tendency when you have, then it becomes very difficult. But luckily, those people who hold these beliefs are quite irrelevant in the large scheme of things. They do tend to create a lot of noise on social media about. But if we all make it a priority, then of course it can happen. But that's the thing. If you really care about India, take India along. But if you're going to if you only care about your bubble, then good luck to you.
This is some great views from you, Chetan, and clearly, myself personally, I'm through this conversation, I'm seeing a different side of you, and clearly one which I wasn't so aware of, and it's great to be in conversation with you. Our movement, like I mentioned, is all about democratizing access to thinkers and thought leaders and writers and columnists, to everyone, not just in India and abroad. A funny thing is, every time we tweeted, or one of our speakers or authors tweeted saying, come and see me at LitFestx, we would get a ton of tweets back saying, where, which city. So it's going to take time for people to realize that it doesn't need to be anywhere, it doesn't need to be in any city. It's happening on your mobile phone, and for you to access not just live, but anytime you want it, with the recorded feed. So we hope that you'll be able to support this movement of sort of promoting free access and democratic access to thinkers such as yourselves and writers such as yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any, words about LitFestx for our viewers as a parting note.
Well, just that, keep enriching yourself. These opportunities are there. It makes you a better person. It makes you gives you better personality to and it's not just my session. There are so many wonderful sessions that have been happening. Even if you missed, you can go back and see some of them. So just listen to what people have to say and be open-minded, and it'll make you a better person.
Great. Thank you so much, Chetan, and all the best. Bye-bye.